for that powerful message that there's nothing outside of us that's going to save us. It's all within. It's all around us. It's you. You are the blessing that's been sent here to transform this world, to awaken to grace, You know, I heard this story about this young man. I'm not quite sure he was awakened to grace yet, but he was entrepreneurial. He was a very entrepreneurial guy, you know, and so he had this idea. He saw in the paper this local farmer had a donkey for sale for $1,000. So being the entrepreneurial spirit that he is, he says, wow, if I get my hands on that donkey, you know, I got all kinds of ideas. So he calls the farmer up and you know, makes this deal with him and sends him the $1,000. And the deal was that in 1 week, the farmer would deliver that donkey to him. Well, a week goes by, and the farmer calls this young entrepreneur up, and he says, I got some bad news. He says, the donkey died. The donkey died. So he thought for a minute, and he says, well, that's all right. He said, there's other opportunities. Just give me my $1,000 back. He says, well, I got a little more bad news. He said, I already spent the $1,000. So he thought for a second. He says, that's okay too. He said, just deliver that donkey to me 1 week. So he goes to work and he comes up with this idea, being the entrepreneur that he is. And he says, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a raffle. I'm going to sell raffle tickets for $2 a piece. So sure enough, a week goes by and he's back in touch with the farmer. He says, yeah, make sure you bring that donkey. And he says, you know, everything's turned out all right. He said, what do you mean? He says, well, what I did, I started this raffle for $2 to buy a donkey. I sold 500 tickets and made $1,000. And the farmer says, well, nobody was upset about that? He said, yeah, the guy that bought it was. He was a little upset. He says, well, what'd you do? He said, I gave him back his $2. So he made $998. You know, I don't know about you, but I imagine that's not the first time that the farmer and the entrepreneur found themselves in a dance like that, right? I imagine that's not the first time. And perhaps they'll just live a whole life dancing together with like-minded swindlers, if you will. And perhaps they'll live their whole life not realizing that there's beliefs that they have that are really attracting these people to them. Or perhaps they'll begin to awaken to the beliefs that are attracting those into their life that are coming into their life. You know, in Unity we teach both karma and grace. Right? We teach both karma and grace. For those of you who like to read Scripture, let me read from Galatians 6, 7, 8. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that he will also reap. For he who sows of the flesh, of the three-dimensional consciousness, will of the flesh reap. But he who sows of the Spirit will of the Spirit reap everlasting life. Now, we've visited before that when we hear that phrase, everlasting life, we can exchange the word kingdom of God with that. We can exchange the word fourth dimensional consciousness with that, right? This other consciousness that as we begin to sow in the Spirit, as we begin to trust Spirit, as we begin to trust the universe working things out for our life, we begin to realize this timelessness, this kingdom of heaven dimension, this everlasting life or the kingdom of God. You know, Deepak Chopra in his book, The Book of Secrets, remember that book back from, I think it was probably around 2010, somewhere in that range. You know, he does a nice job of really sorting out what it's like to, and I'm paraphrasing from his book here, what it's like to actually live our lives with this belief that there's only this third dimensional consciousness, that all we can see with our eyes is all there really is, and all that we know with our intellectual mind, and that's really all there is. And so what he says in that is when you're in that state, you know, you believe it's your hard work that's going to get it for you, right? Or maybe you're like the farmer and the entrepreneur. You believe, well, hey, you know what? this is all there is. I got to kind of work it out. I got to figure it out here, you know. And so that's what life is like. It's a life limited to the life of cause and effect. But as we begin to trust Spirit and dwell in the presence, the I am presence, it's a life we awaken to of grace. It's a life where we begin to awaken to this timeless dimension. It's a life where we begin to awaken to the understanding and the knowing that the universe is at work for us. It's a life where we begin to realize that our soul knows exactly the next steps for our life. It's a life of grace. You know, those of you who like to read the Course in Miracles, there's this amazing lesson in Lesson 169 about grace. It says, this life of grace is a state so opposite to everything the world contains that those whose minds are lighted by the gift of grace cannot believe the world of fear is real. As our minds begin to awaken, and we bring our mind and our heart together, we activate this other dimension to go to work for our lives. How many believe that this morning? Yes, you've experienced that. You know, for me, coming to church is certainly about meeting together and being together with like-minded souls and learning from each other and seeing from each other that our souls have evolved and that through that we just begin to transfer that light and we begin to evolve. And for me, coming to church, the real reason I come to church is for the community and for awakening to grace. And for awakening to the reality that there's something else going on besides my eyes, what my eyes can see and my intellect knows. That was really the core teaching of Jesus, right? I mean, we're 2,000 years later and we're just now seeing in a greater way in humanity that this was his core teaching, the kingdom of heaven. That he was the one that came and brought grace, and we're moving into Easter and we're just going to begin to explore in greater and greater ways just what was brought and just what we're awakening to now, what you're awakening to now. So the question is, this morning is, are we going to live our lives in this exhausting dance like the entrepreneur and the farmer, always finding life partners to teach us that we're stuck in a three-dimensional consciousness? Or are we going to rise and live from the heart, trusting the heart and bringing the heart and the mind together as one? Listen to how powerful that is. In the Gospel of Thomas it says, if the heart and the mind, if our beliefs and our heart are in coherence, if our beliefs and our heart are one, it says, if two, our heart and mind, make peace with one another within a single house, within this single consciousness, they will say to the mountain, go elsewhere, and it will go elsewhere. Do you see how we brought a whole nother dimension into our life by simply aligning the heart and the mind? So now that we know we have a whole lot more potential that is there for our life, I have some questions for you. How many of you believe that each one of us is a unique divine blueprint? How many believe that we're here to take steps forward and realizing more and more of that unique expression of that unique divine blueprint in our lives for ourselves and for all? Yeah, you come to unity, of course you believe that. And can you see that the universe knows exactly, and your soul knows exactly what to present to you to realize more of that expression? Are you with me? Yeah. So I have another question. How many of you have been through times in your life where your life became unexpectedly and near completely dismantled and disoriented? Yeah. And you faced those mountains. You faced those old beliefs that no longer serve you. Those old ways of navigating life. You realize this no longer serves me. So my next question is, and I think you're going to like this question a whole lot better, how many of you would like to awaken to a spiritual consciousness that would allow you to avoid cycling through repeated, unexpected, dismantling, and disoriented cycles in your life? Can we all agree that we've been through those cycles where it just keeps repeating itself and repeating itself and repeating itself? But I think for most of us, we would really like to begin to discover consciously what those beliefs are that are standing in the way rather than unconsciously. Because when they're unconscious, we kind of allow the universe to go ahead and remind us of it. At some level, unconscious, we are given permission to let the universe go ahead and remind us of just what it is that's limiting us from that full expression of this unique blueprint we have. So let's keep going. So the question is, how can we use our soul's experience to notice areas in our life that are blocking the next phase of our spiritual evolution? How can we use our soul's experience to notice and to move into that state where the rest of our life is the best of our life? Where the rest of our life keeps being the best of our life. Do you know that affirmation from Louise Hayes? The rest of my life is the best of my life. Let's affirm that together this morning. The rest of my life is the best of my life. I consciously choose for the rest of my life to be the best of my life. I know the old ways to release, and I release them. I know the old ways to release, and I release them. Let's affirm that together. I know the old ways to release, and I release them. My life then becomes more grace and less karma as I align my heart and mind. Now there's 3 ways that we can navigate through these disruptions that are going on in our life, this disorientation that's going on in our life. And the first one, I think most of us in Unity are now awake to, that we are not victims, right? I mean, one way to navigate through that, and that it keeps recycling for us, is we see ourselves as victims to things that are occurring in our life. And we start saying things like, why is this happening to me again? I'm so unlucky. It always seems to happen to me. Life is so unfair. And the one I hear so much today is, there are so many jerks these days. How will I ever proceed? Things aren't like they used to be. The jerks are everywhere. Are you hearing that too? Yeah. I mean, this seems to be the new. But that is one way, the sure way, to stay stuck. And for this, live a life where these circumstances keep repeating themselves and where we keep having dance partners showing up to show us our lessons in life, right? That's a sure way. The second way is, and I think most of us have transitioned into this, but I want to get to that third way. But the second way is we become students. We start to see, oh wow, my life has just been totally disoriented. It's been totally disrupted. What is that belief? And so we begin to become conscious of that. And we also embrace whatever it is that's showing up. Because we said, I created this, right? We take responsibility. I created this. But still, things are showing up unexpectedly. The third way is to become a master. These big disruptions are often preceded by subtle hints. Have you noticed? Yeah, very often these things are showing themselves to us long before a massive disorientation. Not always, but frequently. And so as a master, we don't wait for that to happen. We begin to become conscious of what is that belief before the major shakeup. And we begin to try on our new beliefs. You know, my Kabbalah teacher years ago, he taught me this wonderful affirmation, we blossom when we try on our new beliefs. I blossom when I try on my new beliefs. Let's affirm that together. I blossom when I try on my new beliefs. Masters choose to initiate the changes. They choose to initiate the way they navigate life beforehand. There's something else a master does. She doesn't waste her time trying to go back and trying to fix the past. Masters don't give their energy to trying to go back and create everything so that it's okay with their dance partner, right? They don't put a lot of time into that. And this is the big one. This is the one I couldn't wait to get to in this talk. All right? The master knows that at some level, the people who they ran into were people who agreed to participate with them to learn their lessons through contrast. I want to read that one again. This is a big one. This is, you begin to awaken, you begin to realize, wow, these people keep showing up in my life. They're showing up over and over. They got different faces, but it's the same thing. You been through that? Yeah. The master knows that at some level, the people who they ran into were people who agreed to participate with them to learn their lessons through contrast. The farmer and the young entrepreneur, when they wake up, they'll begin to realize that that whole arrangement was agreed to. And then they'll begin to realize more and more, the master begins to realize through contrast, I don't want this. This is not what I want in my life. I know what this feels like. I know where it leads to. But there's something else the master does. It's conscious that it's that contrast, that this is not what I want, that sets up, this is what I want. Everything but everything but everything in your life, the soul remembers and uses for you to become so clear about what you don't want and what you do want. So the master doesn't judge the past. It doesn't go back and try to fix the past. They know, the master knows that everything but everything is for them, and they walk away from the past and they stay focused on where is the flow, where is the fresh, where are those dance partners that just, their energy just dances together with mine, and they line up and they focus on that flow. Guilt about the past is not part of the master's consciousness. Gratefulness is. Gratefulness is. You know, when I was willing to use tools like a phony $1,000 raffle to sell tickets and make up my losses, karma gave me a farmer that ripped me off $1,000. Can you see that? Yeah. But when I began to trust the ways of grace, being true to myself, and allowing my beliefs to become totally in alignment with my heart, where they're one, I then begin to discover in a greater way this whole timeless dimension. Right? Spirit is infinite. Spirit is timeless. And it brings into our life, when we align our beliefs with our heart, a whole new way, a way of grace. There is karma and there is grace. And they're both guiding us to a fuller expression of that unique divine blueprint we've all come to express. So I'd like to wrap up this talk, and I don't often do this, but I want to get a little homework this week, all right? You up for a little homework? You know, some speakers, they give homework every week. I don't give it every week because I don't think everybody wants homework every week. But this week, I'm going to give you a little homework. This week, I'm inviting you to become very aware of a belief and a way of navigating your life that's no longer serving you. What I'm inviting you to do is to write that underlying belief down that is driving your behavior that's no longer serving you. All right? You don't have to write all this down. You can go back. We post these services on YouTube and on Facebook if you don't get a chance to write these 4 questions down. What is the underlying belief that's driving my behavior, number 1? Number 2, what is the payoff from that behavior? What's the payoff I'm getting from that? You know? Number 3, what is the cost for hanging on to that old belief that's no longer serving me? What's the cost of that? And number 4, what is the benefit of releasing the old belief and the old way of navigating life? What's the benefit of releasing that? We agreed in this talk that we are a unique divine expression, here to express more and more of that unique divine blueprint we are. And it's those old beliefs that are standing in the way, and they're showing up quite frequently in our lives. And as we become masters and just begin to notice them and make that conscious decision to change, we begin to navigate that a whole lot more effortlessly and begin to realize a whole lot more joy in our life. Namaste. Namaste.